So we are really delighted to have you here, Charlie Adlard, on our podcast. You've been coming to Amiens, and you will be coming soon to
Cabaret Vert?
Yeah, to the Cabaret Vert. Thank you. Because you're going to be presenting your new album, Altamont, that will be out in August 30th from Glénat. So we will be speaking a little bit about that. But before that, I want to go just 4 years before when The Walking Dead ended, because I think everybody knows that you've been drawing The Walking Dead for 15 years. More than 16 years, ma'am?
16 years, yeah.
16. So could you go back a little bit and tell us a little bit about when you got the script from the final issue and when you realized it would be the final issue? Because as readers, we didn't know before it was out.
Well, funnily enough, I knew 4 years before, before the final issue. Robert and I had talked about finishing it way back. I remember sending an email to Robert saying, around about 12 years into The Walking Dead, saying, I think by this time we need to establish an end, whether it's in 6 months' time or however long, 20 issues time, 40 issues time. It ended up being, yes, we'll end it in 48 issues time, only because when we sort of suggested it to each other, and actually it was quite mutual, even though I'd sent what I perceived to be the initial email to Robert saying, I need an out. Robert was also thinking, ooh, I've got this much story to tell and this much time left. How am I going to sort of tell Charlie that? And yet, conveniently, I'd sent an email saying, so it was funny because we both were thinking of the end almost at the same time. So, yeah, and Robert suggested, well, just to make everything look nice and neat, it's best to finish off on an issue where you've got the complete, collection, so to speak. So we thought, well, the best thing to do is to finish off on the fourth compendium, the big 48 issue collection. And then you've got a nice bookshelf looking number of Walking Dead. And of course, he suggested that. And of course, the initial thing was, oh, well, we'd almost started, if you were counting in compendiums, we'd literally almost started compendium number 4. So obviously you work forward and realize that's another 4 years worth of work. But after doing 12 years, 4 years didn't seem that long, to be honest. And I was still enjoying it, don't get me wrong. It wasn't like I wanted to leave straight away. I just needed to know that we were finishing at some point. Because before then, we always used to say, literally, to each other and to the press and fans and everything, oh, yeah, we're just going to carry on forever. Yeah, semi-joking, obviously, but that was always the perceived notion. So, and obviously we kept saying that for the next 4 years until we surprised everybody with issue 193.
Yeah, because you were also, you drew covers for issues 194 and 195. Yeah. So because you and Robert did a really tricky thing to let the people think that, it will go on. And then, so was it hard also to draw covers for issues that would not exist, and then to keep the secret also from maybe your closest friends and family?
Well, I thought that, that was Robert's suggestion, and I thought it was a genius move, because that's the problem with especially the American industry. Everything is projected 3 months in advance. So if at the time, if 3 months worth of Walking Dead were not in previews, people would obviously know 3 months prior to the issue finishing that something was up, even though we might not be saying anything. And because we were so regular, for 16 years, we literally did it month after month after month, and it was like we didn't miss anything. So it would have been a really odd move to have just not released anything in 3 months. So that was the idea, was to pretend that we were going to, carry on, to try and keep it as much of it in, especially in this day and age where nothing can be kept a secret. The idea was, let's see if we can keep it a secret until, you know, the fans have the book in their hands and get to the end and it says the end. You know, so that was always part of the plan. But it was yeah, it wasn't odd drawing covers I knew wouldn't be published, because I think part of doing The Walking Dead was because we worked for Image, and the whole deal with doing The Walking Dead is more like a book deal. You know, we don't get paid per page. We get paid on royalties at the end of it. So really doing the covers that never got published just felt like just part of the whole in terms of the product. And they're still out there. They're still relevant. Just because they haven't been published doesn't mean that they don't exist.
Yeah, and they're part of the story of the publication,
yeah, exactly.
of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did it feel to end The Walking Dead after 16 years?
Oh, it felt brilliant. It did, genuinely. I mean, I got to admit, there was a tinge of sadness because it was part of my life for so long. You know, 16 years of anyone's life is you know, a big old chunk. I mean, that's what, you know, generally speaking, that's probably a quarter of your life spent, you know, drawing one single thing. So yeah, there was an element of sadness, but it was just, you know, already after 12 years, after that initial email asking for, you know, can we have an end at some point? It was, well, we need. I could see it starting to wear me down, so it was. I think we ended at the perfect point, actually, and it was great doing the final issue because, you know, for the last sort of 4 or 5 years or more probably, yeah, I was penciling it and Stefano Gaudiano was inking it, and that was, yeah, as good as an inker as Stefano was, you know, Stefano would totally understand, knowing full well that he knew I'd prefer to be inking and finishing my own work, because that's what I've always done and that's what I am continuing to do, and we only did it for a time-saving device, so I could go off and do something else as well on top of The Walking Dead. So it was great coming back to 193 and, you know, doing that, well, triple-sized issue and finishing it off the way I wanted to see it finished off, which was me, you know, doing it all again. So that was a nice thing to do.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay, I'll cut that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how you managed to find time to do other projects while doing The Walking Dead, like Vampire State Building or stuff like that, which also took a lot of time to put out, because in an interview, it was like in 2014 that you were already speaking about that, but it only came out 5 years later. So I think it was hard to adjust also your time for doing The Walking Dead and then other projects.
Yeah, I mean, Vampire State Building especially was very long gestation because of that, because I'm obviously doing Walking Dead, and I mean that, you know, that's why I sort of, one of the reasons I like French industry is because generally speaking they give you an enormously long deadline, so it worked for me. And obviously I told Soleil, my publishers, right at the beginning that this thing's not going to get done in the next year or the next 6 months or something. It would be a very long term thing. So yeah, that was literally done in between. You know, I'd do issues of The Walking Dead, sort of get ahead, so I knew I had, say, a month of nothing before the next issue, and so I'd have plenty of time to do a chunk of Vampire State. And then, I mean, the first thing I did after finishing Walking Dead was finish Vampire State Building. I probably had 10-15 pages left to do. I can't remember now, but that was my first goal. But there was a nice feeling of kind of relaxation when I was doing the last few pages of that, because I knew I wasn't working against the clock to get as much done as possible before I went back onto The Walking Dead again. So it was, yeah, those final pages were very enjoyable because they were just nice, and I could just chill and do them at my own pace.
Okay. So as a British artist, you've already done work for the European and French market especially, and also for an American market. Except for the deadline stuff, what are the differences of these two working markets that you've been working for?
Well, yeah, apart from the deadlines. I mean, it is a different format. You've got to... The American format tends to be a lot more, because you're producing, generally speaking, 22 pages per month. So, you know, that's... Yeah, over 100. If you're a regular month, that's over 150 pages a year. You can afford to be a bit more relaxed with the storytelling. I mean, I think a lot of American comic books, and I criticize them myself, are guilty of the fact that when a monthly issue comes out, you can read it within 5 minutes, and you go, "Whoa, is that worth it?" You know, I mean, it might be worth it if it's all collected and you read it as a big chunk of 120, 200 pages or whatever. But sometimes when you just get your monthly fix, shall we say, it's sometimes quite an empty experience. Whereas with bande-dessinée, because of its format and especially the classic 48, 52 page format, you really have to condense your story into those pages. So I think you do get, as we say in the UK, in the UK and America, more bang for your buck. You know, you do get that more condensed storytelling. So you've got to sort of twist your art a bit to fit that. You know, on the technical level, tends to be more panels a page because of that, and you know also that the pages will be printed larger, so it's easier to do more panels on a page because obviously you can see them more clearly. Yeah, I mean, aside from that, we're all Western countries. You know, we haven't got a difference in how we tell a story or anything like that. Our storytelling is similar. I think Europeans have a bigger sense of place than the Americans. Which suits me fine because that's what I prefer. Which is basically you concentrate more on atmosphere and, like, say, a place. You know, reference is always really strong. Whereas in America, it's all the concentration is more on dynamism and action and things like that, which they could argue do better than the Europeans. But you could argue the Europeans do setting the scenes and dialogue better than the Americans. So it's each industry has its own advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah. So that was. Do you have one that you prefer?
Yeah, it's bande-dessinée.
Bande-dessinée, all right.
I do genuinely. I've always been a fan of the art form, and Angoulême, it was the last. I mean, I used to visit Angoulême the first few, because I'm a regular attendee of Angoulême every year, but the first few years I went back in the early 90s, I'd already started working professionally, so I wasn't going there to get work at the time. I was just going there as a fan. They were the last shows I went as a fan without actually, to be honest, they're the only shows I went as a fan, because every other show I've been to since I got into comic books back in the late 80s, there was always one intention on going to those shows, and that was first to get work and then to be a professional there. So those first few years at Angoulême were the only times we just walked around and marveled at everything. So I've always been a massive fan, and I love the format, and I'm in a very privileged position as a comic book artist that I don't need to work, or at least I don't need to work to the level of an American comic book to keep the money coming in. So I can actually afford to sit back, kick back, and just work on a French comic book and take a year to do it. Now, I've almost turned my career around opposite, almost, how do you explain? I've almost gone the opposite way that people would expect, because I was always very known, especially in the States, for being very fast. Now, I was really fast, but now I'm enjoying being really slow.
Okay, time is the essence.
Yeah, taking time and just relaxing a bit and just enjoying what I'm doing rather than constantly looking at the clock and thinking I've got to do another page by,
So that's why when the Working Dead ended, you were not surrounded by writers wanting to work with you or stuff like that, because you were free for the first time.
Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't. It's funny, I didn't have loads of people knocking on my door. I did find it quite ironic that I instantly, as soon as the last issue came out, I instantly had 2 offers, one from Marvel, one from DC, to do something, both zombie related. And I was not interested at all, Again, Robert and I have been spoilt because, obviously The Walking Dead is creator owned. Why on earth would I be interested in doing somebody else's characters again? I think a few people have sort of tried to offer me that carrot on a stick, and I'm like, no, I don't, why do I want to work on your character and be just paid a page rate? I'd rather, I've got, it's okay. I've got plenty of other projects that I could be doing, that I can create myself, which is much more exciting.
Weren't you a little bit of afraid of being typecast for the zombie guy, and that even in creator owned that you would only be asked to do more horror stuff?
Which is why I turn those down. But
okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm eternally grateful to The Walking Dead, and if it meant that I'd never be working again because I've turned down the stuff that people perceive that I'm best at, so be it. But thankfully, I've always found another avenue out, and I'm a realist. I know what I will work on what I have worked on since The Walking Dead. I know it won't achieve the sales, definitely, of what The Walking Dead achieved. It was a kind of an anomaly, but so I am not naive. I'm not thinking, this will be the next big thing I do. But I'm not after that. I don't really. I've done the big thing. I'm not really after that anymore. I just want to do good stuff. The only thing I'm quite determined to do is prove to people that I am not a one-trick pony, and I can do more than just, zombies.
All right. So you're still doing horror with Suspiria, with Damned and All. Can you tell us a little bit about the origin of this project, how it came to be?
Yeah, well, as with so many projects, it's really hard to pinpoint the just.
I want to know the exact moment on day and date.
Well, I can't give it you, unfortunately. No, it's so hard to pinpoint exactly how that came about. It was one of those weird things where I was reading. I suddenly realized, because obviously I still read comic books, not to the extent that I read them when I was sort of a kid or even in my early 20s.
But you're still quite reading them, and it's not the case at all with other artists. So many artists that I've been interviewing are like, no, I'm drawing so many pages that I just don't have the time, and I don't want to read other comic books. So that's not the case with you.
No, not really. I mean, I do tend to read them specifically when I go to bed, only because a comic book falling on your face when you fall asleep is a lot less painful than a novel or something like that. So I tend to read them in bed, and sometimes it might take me 3 or 4 days to get, I know it sounds crazy, to get through one comic book, because I am literally reading it in bed and falling asleep after 4 pages, and then the next night having to reread at least 2 of those because I was sort of dozing off. But anyway, but I found I was reading a lot of Boom stuff, and again, a rarity for me. I ended up getting the contact details to one of the editors there, not to get, well, yes, to get work, but not like a desperate, I really want to work with you guys, but I just wanted to send an email. So I really like what you're doing. So if there's any ever an opportunity to work together, that would be great, because, you know, I think what you're doing is really good, and it would be nice to work with another publisher. Yeah, because I was so used to working with Image, you know, after so long. I just thought just to shake things up. So, and of course they got back to me and said, "Oh, we'll definitely, yeah, let's keep an eye out." And I've known Si for years, and we've often said, "Oh, we'll have to work together sometime," you know. But yeah, you say those things and nothing really comes of it. And we were just chatting one day, and yeah, he mentioned the fact that, you know, he's got Coda at Boom, and that was obviously doing really well. So all these just planets suddenly started to, you know, line up, and Si suggested Damn Them All, and I was initially a bit reluctant, because I have a rule, which is basically I will instantly say no to zombies, definitely. And I have, you know, admittedly had many offers zombie related over the last 4 years. And then I am reluctant to do horror, because that's the next sort of stage. You just think, well, you know, I want to get away, I want to experiment, I want to do other genres, I want to do other things. And, you know, especially because The Walking Dead was basically, at the end of the day, was a book about character. Yeah. And, yeah, I would rather concentrate on that. And so, but then Si came up with the Damn Them All and promised that it wouldn't be just another, you know, gore fest and things like that. And of course, I read the script and I was like, well, actually, this is really good. All right, then. And I got, it was like visually, as soon as I always find the best projects, the projects I know that will be successful for me to work on are the projects that are, you instantly start seeing images in your head as you're reading the script. And with Damn Them All, I was seeing the images, and it was nice. I was thinking, yes, I get to draw contemporary London, which I've always wanted to draw. I've always wanted to draw something just basically contemporary, but not within a fantasy setting. Obviously, Walking Dead's contemporary, but every single, you know, shot of buildings and stuff, you have to, you know, make them look like they're ruined and overgrown and all that. So yeah, to actually literally draw real people in real settings was a very attractive little carrot for me.
But you said that you didn't want to do like gore-fest horror, that you're more into the atmospheric type of horror, but still Damn Them All has quite some bloody scenes, yeah.
Well, it is horror after all, and it's got demons, and it's got, but again, what I wanted to do was, I didn't want to make it look like some sort of superhero demon kind of fest. So that's why, if you see the black and white artwork, because I'm not colouring it, Sophie Dodgson is brilliantly colouring it, actually. Every time a demon appears, there's this sort of vibration going on and kind of jagged lines, and looks like all the backgrounds are sort of splitting up, because, you know, it's almost migraine inducing. I'm specifically recalling the imagery from Rosemary's Baby, when you've got basically the devil rapes her scene, and it's all swirly, surreal kind of, and the screen's sort of doing this sort of classic 60s thing where the thing just all bends and distorts and everything. And I was recalling that, thinking, yeah, that's a really good way of showing something really extreme, but you're not really sure what you're seeing. So I was trying to go for that, you know, with the demons, that they appear, but it's unless you're someone like, you know, Ellie, the heroine, whatever, unless you're sort of powered magically, everyone else is just vibrating and shaking and throwing up, and the demons are just walking through these sort of scenes, and everything is just going a bit bonkers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just trying to do something different rather than just some massive sort of thing walking through, a scene just destroying stuff, which, has been done a million times before. So just trying to make it look different,
All right, and it's like right now when we are recording, there's a pause, and the 7th issue has just been announced in the previews. So you're not doing ongoing, you're
No.
mostly working by story arcs now.
Yes, I mean it's not. I'll say it now. I'll never do an ongoing ever again.
So be warned, editors.
Life is too short. I mean, I'm 56 now, so I'm not old, but I still look at my career and think, well, really, I've got, not that I'll ever give up either, but I will, I don't know, perhaps I'm looking at my career and thinking, well, I've got 10, 15 really good years left. And as an artist, as a writer, it's slightly different because you can just, sounds awful, you can just churn the stuff out, but you can do 1 or 2, 3 projects at a time and get it all out of your system. Whereas as an artist, it's hard to get it all out of your system because it just takes so long to draw that sort of stuff. So yeah, Damn Them All is broken into arcs. So I've got, the space in between to hopefully do other things, which is perfect. It's ongoing. Yes, it's ongoing, but no, it's not.
Not monthly, not monthly ongoing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit now about Altamont. So I've got the same questions, how it came to be, because it's about a festival that took place in 1969 with the Rolling Stones were headlining, and it all came to hell because the Hells Angels were doing the security and they happened to kill one guy in the end. So it's really an important a marker in the history of the United States. Was it something important to you, Altamont?
Yeah, I mean, I've got no personal connection to it, but I've just found that interesting. The whole end of the '60s kind of thing, and how America how the world basically changed from that sort of positivity to and going into the '70s into the almost the complete opposite. So. It's always been something, and Altamont has always, together with the Manson murders, has always been the two kind of linchpins, significant events that almost put paid to the hippie dream, and which I find quite fascinating. So yeah, coupled that with the fact that I've always wanted to do a comic about music, specifically rock music,
because that's what you're into.
Well, yeah. I play the drums. I'm in a band.
Yeah, all right.
It's not just that. I just find that just quite interesting. I like the historical context. It's an interesting time to draw. I've always thought, well, it'd be nice to draw the '60s sort of thing. On a very basic level. Again, so all these little elements are combining. Flying around my head, and I just needed to I needed someone basically to collect my random thoughts, because I'm not a writer. I'll never write. I'll be the first to admit that. Sorry?
Are you sure?
I am absolutely sure.
Okay.
No, I know I'm not capable of doing that. So I needed someone to get these random thoughts in my head and put them on paper and collect them and make sense of everything. So that's what Eric Hanna did.
So it was Thierry Mornay from Delcourt that introduced you to Eric?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the funny thing about Altamont was it was never originally perceived to be a bande-dessinée. It wasn't, I never thought, oh, this will be a great French album. I always thought it was going to be an American book. Initially I was thinking, I'll get a writer, I'll go to Image and we'll get it published there. That was my perceived kind of avenue, or Image or someone in America. And for various reasons, I did talk to some writers, and we got to a certain point with one guy, and then he decided that it wasn't for him, which is fair enough. You know, he bailed really early on, so it wasn't like
last minute.
Yeah, it wasn't last minute. It's not like we had loads done. I mean, I'd already drawn some, you know, sketches and things like that, some concept stuff to get the image right in my head. But I'd have done that anyway. That wasn't anything to do with the writer. I mean, my only sort of disappointment with the final guy sort of saying, oh, I don't know if I can do this, is he was literally my last person I was talking to, you know, English speaking person anyway. So I was for a couple of weeks just thinking, God, is this idea in my head just going to now just I'll never achieve this thing, you know? And then it just happened to be, I was just chatting with Thierry one day on email, and I just mentioned to him, do you know of anyone that might be interested? And he instantly came up with Herrick. And I knew of him because he'd worked with my friend Sean Phillips on the Seven Psychopaths bande-dessinée, which they'd worked together. So I knew of him. And so we sort of, I got his contact, and then we talked a bit. He really quickly sent me a proposal, and then really quickly sent me the actual script. And by that time, I was just thinking that he's got it. He's completely understood exactly what I want to do with this. And I couldn't have waited. I couldn't have wished for a better collaborator on Altamont. He really understood what we wanted to do. So much so that I'm sure we'll work together again, because we seem to be on the same wavelength in terms of what we want to do in comic books, or what we're interested in doing, which is primarily character-based stuff, which has some kind of which it has some sort of what's a good way of describing it? Have some sort of it sounds really a bit arrogant to say it, but it has some sort of importance. Because again, I always want to work now. I want to do something that's not just fun and frivolous. I'm not really that interested. I want to have a bit of a, I suppose, for want of a better word, a bit of a legacy. Mm-hmm. So doing something like Altamont, which is about something, and it's not just an adventure. It's not just a bit of fun, which has its, don't get me wrong, has its place. But I'm not really that interested in that. I'd rather create something that has a lasting impression on people, and I hope Altamont does, and whatever I do next will be of a similar kind of style.
When did you find the time to do this project? Because you're doing the drawing, the pencils, the inks, and the colors. So
I know it's it's a bit crazy, because I was talking about getting more relaxed and having time to do it, and then suddenly I find myself doing Damn Them All and Altamont at the same time. I mean, I started Altamont first, and then Damn Them All sort of started to come together. And before I knew it, Boom wanted out at a certain time, and to which I foolishly agreed, much to my slight regret, because I wish I could have said, no, can we push it back a year or something like that? But anyway, so of course I've got busy again. But we're okay. I mean, I've done, Altamont's finished now. So we're just, looking forward to the launch of that. And so I am now concentrating on the next arc of Damn Them All, and then we'll see where we are after that. But at least I've sort of managed to take it down to just the one, because it wasn't that last year wasn't, well, I say it wasn't fun. Of course it was fun, but it was hard work, doing jiggling, going between Damn Them All and then Altamont, and back to Damn Them All and then back to Altamont. It was the way I don't like to work. It was like I was doing that at periods of The Walking Dead, not necessarily with Vampire State. Well, I was actually with Vampire State. I was doing that, but I had done other projects way in the past before, when I was doing Walking Dead, and literally doing that bit of Walking Dead, doing it, doing enough that I could get ahead, so I'd have a month to work on something else, and then doing the same. And I can do it, but it's not. No, I don't think it's anyone's preferred way of working. So yeah, so it was nice to get it. Actually, in the end, what I said, thankfully, and they agreed at Herrick and everyone at Glénat agreed for me to do this. I said, can I do the first book of, do the first series of Damn Them All, get it all done, finish it, and then I can concentrate on finishing Altamont. And then I said to the guys at Boom, can I have a bit extra time in between arcs so I can finish Altamont? So I had to do a bit of negotiating with people, but thankfully they all agreed, so I could, have that nice, because at the end of the day, everyone appreciates the work's going to be better if you have the right environment to work in, and that was.
And if you're not rushing anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But when you said that Eric had a script that was like mixing all your ideas that were in your brain, so it was already that you had decided that it would not be like a comic documentary about the Altamont Festival, but that you would concentrate on characters. So 5 people that are going to the Altamont Festival, and that sort of like will live something similar to what happened to the festival in general.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, as much as I was quite fascinated by Altamont itself, I didn't want to do a comic about Altamont because that's been told. What's the point? There's no point in just doing a comic version of, because there's a great documentary out there. There's no point. I saw no creative urgency to do a comic version of Give Me Shelter, which is the documentary. So, and I think that might end up being quite cheesy, to be honest, because then if you're doing it about Altamont, then you're having the Rolling Stones are sort of almost featured as the main characters, and then you got to add dialogue to Mick and Keith, and it would just always seem a bit like, oh no, that sounds really awful. Because what I like about what we've done is the fact that Altamont's happening in the background. Everything about Altamont is going on in the background, but it's done very subtly, with little glimpses in the art or, mentions in the dialogue and things like that. And our characters encounter the Hells Angels and things like this. So I think we're telling the story about what happened at Altamont, but through the eyes and the adventures, inverted commas, of these 5 kids that go there. So yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to get the feeling of Altamont across, but these guys have their own sort of Heart of Darkness journey. And visually what I wanted to do was, in the colors especially, was because I start off with this sort of, everything's nice, Californian colors, everything's oranges, yellows, browns, sunshine, blue sky. And as they progress, because they don't get to Altamont for half the book, so it's all character stuff building up to it. And they're on this road trip there. And even on the road trip, things are getting slightly less colourful, shall we say. Things are not going according to plan, even on the road trip. So the colour's starting to drain away. And by the time, they get to Altamont, they get there at night and it's pretty dark and the colors are sort of showing that.
And the morning it's all gray. And
they wake up in the morning, it's very gray, and then the colors get drained even more. So by the end of the book, you're almost in black and white, which is something I really wanted to sort of play around with, just the mood of that, just literally the atmosphere, the color is being sucked out of if you look at a sort of a late 60s movie compared to a mid 70s movie, and I'm not talking about some blockbuster, I'm talking about some, I don't know, because, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example, but I don't know, something like, I don't know, well, something like, say, a James Bond movie of the 60s, and then you look at something like, I don't know, The French Connection or whatever. And my impression of The French Connection is it literally is just all greys and blues and that's it. Whereas, you think of a James Bond, say On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is about the same. It's a 69. How colourful that is, or just things like that. Just the same comparison.
Okay, so and was it also a goal for you to have these characters like really speaking about music, about who their favorite artists are? Is it a way also to draw your favorite artists from that time, or even to express also the various feeling that this youth had at the time between the Vietnam War and the hippie movement?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all in there. That's the thing. And that's the clever way Herrick has sort of woven everything into the script. So even though a lot of it is literally people sat in a VW van talking to each other, there's so much going on, and you're developing character so much that all this comes back, to haunt them is probably the wrong word, but all this all this is significant to how their characters behave, when they get to the festival. But even down to the music they like, and just visually, again, the flashes of, say, Hendrix and Eric Clapton in this glorious, and of course they're all at the beginning, all this glorious Technicolor psychedelia imagery is sort of bursting out on the first few pages, because there's so much hope as they're going there, so much hope, which is going to be ultimately dashed when they get there. Okay,
I think you might have one criticism at the end of when the book is published. I'm not going to put this podcast out before it's out, so we can speak about the ending about what stuff that happened, about the rape of the girls. Was it? Do you think, because there's been criticisms about the whole use of the rape as a narrative motive for other characters to move on, and the way that some women just are only there, the women in refrigerator stuff, that female characters were only put in a story to be either raped or murdered to survive as a motive for other characters. Right. What do you think about that?
Oh, blimey, that's a heavy question. So this is to prepare for the critique of it all. Wow. And I suppose you could also say, well, it's written by two white blokes, and they haven't seen the female perspective. All I can really say is the females in this book are as strong as the male characters, and they emerge as strong as the male characters. But oh God, I think the idea of what happens to Jenny, the character that gets raped, is it's the most horrible sort of thing that outside of murder, that can happen to someone. And, that's the ultimate sort of, hell on earth sort of scenario that you get, something, at Altamont. And that is the end of the heart, like I keep saying, the Heart of Darkness tale. It ends in this brutal act of violence. And I'd like it to be perceived, because even though we get to that point, I don't think you're really expecting it to lead to that, because it's the rest of the stuff that happens at Altamont is all very sort of little tiny incidents, not terrible, not really bad. One guy has a bad trip and ends up, he's sort of naked on top of a tower, not seen before. Not seen afterwards, and of course there's the spoiler, which we don't know if we can mention that, but and then we suddenly get this sort of burst of violence right at the end. I mean, in our defense, it just felt like a natural way of doing it. If we're criticized for it, well, so be it. I'm sorry, because we're,
It was not I didn't want to trick you. No, it's a heavy question.
I know. It's a question I've not really. Well, it's interesting because I've not really been ever asked that question before. And I mean, for me personally, it wasn't anything I thought, oh, this is a bit wrong. This is a bit hardcore. I don't like this. Perhaps
no, because you're also not drawing it like in full frontal. It's off scene, and you're not.
It's off scene. It happens definitely, and you don't actually. Well, we do a bit of a narrative trick with it. So again, you don't see anything. It's which is the way I prefer it. Anyway, I always prefer, let's call it horror. My horror off screen. Because I think your mind conjures up much worse images than anything you can show. And let's face it, we didn't really want to show that. That would have been gratuitous, utterly gratuitous, and I don't think it would have been in keeping with the rest of the story at all. So,
did you use a lot of references from either the Gimme Schultz documentary or photos or stock photos, to get the whole 60s mood?
I mean, I did use a lot of thank you, Google image search, but surprisingly, there's not that much in terms of imagery from Altamont. If you do a Google image search, I was constantly coming up with the same photographs over and over again. And I didn't want to cheat and use other references from other festivals at the time. I wanted to keep it, Altamont centric. There's a couple of times I've used images and cobbled it together with other images from Altamont and, created my own image. And I did, I'll be the first one. I did quite a few screen grabs from the documentary. But what's quite good about doing that is because I had the documentary's not inglorious, 4K, ultra Blu-ray kind of format. It's on YouTube. And with the YouTube stuff, if I did do a screen grab, you ended up looking at it and blowing it up. It would be quite a blurry, unclear image, which I kind of like because at the end of the day, I'm, using these images and whether I'm drawing over them or copying them or drawing from them, it forces me to add my own sort of style over it because it's not that clear. I've got the general impression, but it's not that clear. So I can sort of, in a lot of ways, I prefer the stuff that I did ref to be less clear, so I can add my own interpretation. Otherwise, if it's pin sharp clear, you tend to copy it, in inverted commas copy, but copy it exactly as it looks like on your screen. So. I actually was quite relieved. Sometimes you get an image and it you blow it up on the computer or on a printer or whatever, and you just go, oh, that's quite blurry. Great. I can now sort of add my own impression. So, but yeah, I wanted to make it as accurate as possible. So there's a lot of reference, but that was always the idea. It's not a fantasy. This is a proper reality-based, comic book.
And so there's also a question that we asked you during the conference we did yesterday about how is it hard to represent music in terms of comic book format? Yeah,
I mean, the last thing you want to do, like you say, is that certainly would have been a problem if we'd have done the book about Altamont, because how do you show the excitement of music in images, in still silent images? It's always a problem because there's things comic books can do that no other medium can do, and there's also things that comic books can't do that other medium can do. And you're right, it is very hard to show music. You can't show music; you have to listen to music. So what we did was Eric interwove lyrics into the conversation in the car and things like that. And actually, by the time we did, like I keep saying, by the time we do get to Altamont is happening in the background. So you're almost perceiving something going on in the back of your head, and visually it's really I don't depict the bands that much, because like I say, I keep saying it's happening beyond, and even the shots of say Jefferson Airplane and the Rolling Stones, which are the two bands that got the worst abuse from the show. That they are sort of very much pushed back. There's the odd bit of imagery from them, but really, it's all about what's happening, in the periphery around the bands and what's going on. So as important it was to be at the music festival, it wasn't so important to have the music as the center, because it would be too problematical to depict that, and we didn't want to go down the cheesy route of having musical notes and things like that sort of flowing through the air. So I think we we made a good fist of it as much as we could.
All right. Last question. Yeah. So because on the last page, so I won't give up the twist ending, sure. But there's a question that asks what innocence, about when we are speaking about Altamont at the end of the innocence, and so you and Eric are asking what innocence, and do you think so? Maybe the 60s were not that optimistic, and it was all because in the end, humans are only also dark and have bad behaviors. I think
at the end of the day, we show that. However humanity or whatever, however it sounds so depressing, however wonderful something actually is, there's always some undercurrents of darkness going on, and to almost demonstrate that there's such a tenuous hold on things, that it could so easily go the one way or the other. And I think even literally the whole book, once you get to sort of past, say, page 10 or 11, you're already on a journey where you're thinking, oh, all this could just turn on a what's the phrase? Turn on a pinhead. I think that's the phrase, something like that. Knife. It's on a knife edge. It could go one way or the other. And I think, I suppose in the end you show that humanity, the society hasn't really changed, whether it was back in the 60s with peace and love, something something overpowered something else by a tiny amount. You suddenly got 51% as opposed to 49% of something, and then within a couple of years you're getting 51% of the other thing and 49%. There's always that sort of slight overpowering of, and admittedly, we're probably in a period now which is 51% darkness, 49%, hope. But hopefully, in a few years' time, we might have just tipped the scales back again to 51% hope, 49%, darkness.
All right. So maybe your next comic book will be like a comedy, a romantic comedy, or something like that.
Well, at the end of the day, it's. Why do we always you go and watch a movie or something? What's the best character in the movie? Generally, it's the villain. Because they're not necessarily the coolest, but quite often they are. But they just tend to be more interesting than the hero. So because of that, drawing stuff. I mean, look at me. I'm not exactly sat here in black clothes, being all sort of depressing and unhappy, and I'm quite a positive, happy individual. I've got a wife, 2 kids, like comfortable home life, sort of thing. I'm not that sort of person, yet I do enjoy drawing stories about darkness. Now, whether that's because I expunge it all on paper, I don't know, but of course it's more interesting to do that. Romantic comedy, literally, like you said, doing a romantic comedy just wouldn't interest me. It just seems like something about nothing. And again, and generally, if you're going to do something about something, it tends to be about dark subject matter, because that's the most interesting, stuff. And we all if there wasn't troubles in the world, what would we have to talk about?
All right. Thank you very much
No
for your time,
worries.
Charlie, and we're looking forward to the next projects after Altamont. Thank you.
Thank you.